This is the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen where we talk about everything but don't sugarcoat anything. Welcome back to the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci. Today's episode is going to be another solo pod. It's a very vulnerable topic. It's a very personal topic. We're going to be talking about my experience with anxiety and mental health and just how I've navigated that over the last 6-ish years or so, which is crazy to think that it's been 6 years. And truthfully, it hasn't been 6 years, right? It's been a lifetime of learning about yourself. But the past 6 years, I would say, were the most challenging and were the most difficult. And I'm now, I would like to say, on the other side of it. So the purpose of this pod is I want to be vulnerable with all of you. I'm feeling called to share my journey because I know on other social media, on like LinkedIn and stuff, I shared this journey and it was received very well. And even if it wasn't received well, I'd still share it. But I know that a lot of people do struggle with anxiety and mental health. And I think it's important for people to be very honest about their experience with it, especially when they've come out on the other side, to kind of share stories with people who maybe are currently in it. And I just hope that anybody listening to this will know that hopefully, your situation is temporary, and there's a lot of things you can do to help yourself. And I want to be very clear that I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to be a doctor. I've just done a lot of research. I tried to heal myself in the best ways I could for my specific circumstance and my specific situation. So I by no means want to minimize anything that anybody's going through. I am not a mental health expert. I'm just strictly sharing my own personal experience and what helped me and what saved me, and hopefully maybe can help and save a few of you. So I want to get started. It's funny to tell the story of mental health and anxiety, because people are like, well, when did it start? And I feel like the timestamp for me was when I had my first real severe panic attack. And that is what I remember in my brain, but I also know that that wasn't the beginning. Going through this situation, it made me recognize when I was younger, I actually used to have these headaches when I was young. And they told me they were, I was very gaslit by a lot of doctors. And that's something you'll probably hear a theme, is that I think medical professionals are incredible. My brother is a doctor. I believe in many, many things. But unfortunately, my experience with all different types of doctors has just not been positive over my life. And I felt like I've had to do a lot of self-healing and self-soothing and, gone alternative routes, whether it's, functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, different things like that. So if that's something that you're not into, this podcast may not be for you. But if you're willing to give it a listen, I would say do both, because I definitely, both MDs and NDs definitely were very helpful throughout my healing journey. So we'll start, for the sake of today, my first experience of having a panic attack. I'll set the scene for you. I was 24, I believe I was, because it was about 2-ish years before I started my business. I started my business when I was 26, and I was in a relationship. I was working at a corporate job. I believe I was a manager at the time. I think that I was. I had a couple team members that worked for me, and it felt like it was one random day out of nowhere that I just began having anxiety and panic attacks. And this one specifically, I don't remember what started it. I couldn't even remember what happened, but I remember exactly where I was. I was in my apartment that I had before the house that I'm living in now. And I remember laying in bed, and my body became completely numb, like from literally the tip of my nose and down. And I was laying flat. And I remember I couldn't breathe. I remember my lips. I remember feeling like my lips, like I couldn't feel them. I couldn't feel my body, and I was frozen. And I remember not knowing if I was having a heart attack. I didn't know if I was having a heart attack. I didn't know if I was dying. I had no idea. It was like the middle of the night. And because that's the feeling that happens, right? Is like your mind and your body like just aren't talking to each other, and in the ways that they are talking to each other, it's not good. Um, Anxiety or panic can feel like literally like you're dying, or your body is failing you, or you're having a heart attack, depending on what type of symptoms people have. I know a lot of people, like, your heart beats really fast, you get sweaty, you have racing thoughts, you might get lightheaded. Some people even pass out. Like, there's just all sorts of physical experiences that you have with your body, and then also the thoughts that you're having in your brain are worst case, like absolute horrible thoughts. You're worried that you're like, I gotta get out of here, and everything is just focused on escaping and running and removing yourself from a threat. And right, like, there's that trend right now that's like, my body, my nervous system, or my body doesn't know the difference between being held at gunpoint and having to answer an email. Unfortunately, our bodies are so dysregulated. Our bodies are so dysregulated. Our nervous systems are so dysregulated from just how we live our lives, the foods that we put in them, that we honestly don't. I don't think, not that I think many people know what it feels like to be held at gunpoint, to be fair, but I think our bodies really don't know the difference. And the anxiety that we continue to live under is really scary. So I remember experiencing that for the first time, and little did I know that first panic attack was going to lead to multiple panic attacks every single day for about a year straight. And then another year after that of maybe once a week. And then after that, I ended up seeking a lot of healing and help. And I haven't, knock on wood, had a panic attack in a very, very long time. And I do a lot to prevent that and to keep myself in a place that I wasn't before. But I just want you to know that without having to go into the very dark details, experiencing multiple panic attacks and multiple anxiety attacks every single day for literally over a year on end is excruciating, and it's exhausting, and it's debilitating, and it completely changes your life. It changed my career. It changed my relationships, changed how I showed up every single day. I became an incredibly fearful person. I was scared to drive. I was scared to go to work. I was scared not to go to work. I was scared to be at home alone. I was scared to be around people. I was just scared. I just lived my life in this place of fear. I was constantly fearful of everything. And I want to make a note at this moment that and this isn't a shock to people that have listened to podcasts before, that I do have very strong faith. And I believe that anxiety and things like this that are happening in your body is a form of spiritual warfare. And I believe that, I don't need to go into all that spiritual warfare is, but you're welcome to look it up. But I just believe that what I think happened and what was happening was that I was on a track in my life. And I think that it wasn't by coincidence that this occurred right before I started my business, which I believe is a major purpose and plan for my life to be doing what I'm doing now. I do not think that by any coincidence that evil was coming after me and attacks your mind and comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And I believe that all those things were happening all at the same time to try to prevent me from becoming what I was potentially going to become next. So I have a very deep spiritual look at how I think mental health occurs. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I just know for myself that was something that was interesting, that we are so important as human beings. We're so important that good is fighting over you and evil is fighting over you all at the exact same time, that's how valuable you are and that's how important you are. And when you have major callings in your life, or you have things that you're supposed to do, and I believe everybody has those, I don't think it's by coincidence that you might go through a major financial struggle before that happens. You may go through a physical ailment. You might be going through something to be tested or persecuted or whatever it may be before you go to this next level. So I believe that was something that was going on with me looking back. But when you're in it, guys, when you are in it, you just feel like your body's failing you. You feel like this is your new normal. You feel like this is who you're going to be. And you just feel like you have to just constantly change how you live and change your life to live with this anxiety, which I've now found is not good. We're enabling it, right? Like I said, it lasted for about 2 years. It was 2 years of like the most concentrated period of time. And the job that I was working at the time, I started missing a lot of work. I blew through my PTO in a very short period of time. I was missing multiple days of work every single week because I literally couldn't even get out of bed. I was scared to go to work because the way that anxiety tricks you and panic tricks you is you try to avoid everything that could potentially give you anxiety, right? And like we're talking as crazy as pedicures. There was a time that going to a pedicure gave me so much anxiety because I felt trapped. My feet were stuck, and I feel horrible if there's anybody that has anxiety and I'm about to give you anxiety about something else. But literally having my body and my feet stuck in something and I couldn't get out was something that caused me a lot of anxiety. Things that still, make me feel anxiety now is like, say going to church or going to the movies. I just went to the movies recently, and I couldn't sit. I can't sit in the middle row. I can't do something that makes me feel trapped. I remember driving when I had anxiety. I remember literally being in a Panera drive-through, and it had like a median on this side. It was low. I remember driving over the median to get out of the drive-through lane because I had a panic attack in 5 minutes of being in line, and I had to get out of that line. You feel like no matter what, you have to escape and you have to run and you have to get away. So that was that experience all of the time. And at work, a specific symptom that I had was shortness of breath, and I would feel lightheaded. I had a major fear of passing out. And I would even argue I still do even now, but I just have it better managed, is when I was younger, anything medical, getting blood drawn or anything would make me get lightheaded and I would pass out. And one of the major symptoms of anxiety, and one of the, things that people do, is we breathe really, really shallow, right? And so anybody that breathes really shallow in any circumstance, your body's not getting enough oxygen. So it would give the feeling of feeling like I was going to pass out, which then enabled the anxious thoughts even more. And then my thoughts would spiral, right? I would be like, oh my goodness, I am going to pass out here. And then everyone's going to make fun of me. Or what if I hit my head on the way down? And it's like it's like all those what ifs, right? Anxiety is that what if. What if, what if, what if, what if? And I was just living in constant what ifs, even though logically the only experience I'd had with, say, passing out would be at a medical office. But my anxiety told me, well, why couldn't it be here? Or why couldn't it be there? Or why do you think that it would be a different circumstance? So it's this evil, evil thought and these evil, ideas that happen, that come to you when you have anxiety. It's just those constant what ifs. And to me, I believe it's just the devil in your ear just saying, what about this? And what about that? And what about that? It just wants you to be so distracted and so focused on this feeling that you can't be focused on anything else. So I remember sitting in my office feeling like I was going to pass out just because of the way I was breathing. And I would put my legs up on my desk. Like I remember putting my legs up on my desk because I would remember that, like, if I could get my blood above my brain, right, and nothing would happen. And then there was no chance that I probably was going to actually pass out, but I just had that feeling, and that was my fear. And I would just get anxiety attacks during meetings, and I would, so you get to a place that you're scared to live, right? Like you're scared to exist, and you're scared to do anything that you want to do. So you start avoiding every single thing that could bring you anxiety. And I got to a point, guys, that I was doing nothing. I was doing nothing. Everything brought me so much fear and so much turmoil. It wasn't even worth it. So I was very much so a homebody. Like I would go to safe places with safe people, and that was it. And so what happened, which is interesting, is that I remember going through this process, and there's a lot of different directions that you can go. And again, I have no judgment, no shame on anyone who chooses to deal with their anxiety in any ways, that they do, that's healthy and not of harm. I, for myself, wanted to figure out the core root and the issue with my anxiety. I didn't want to go on any medications. Unfortunately, I had a lot of friends in college that and everyone's different, but I had a a couple circumstances that I was very nervous about being on certain types of medication. So I really wanted to get to the root cause of what was happening. And I remember being at work and I filled out FMLA because of all of the time I was taking off and hoping that they would give me leave, right? So I think it's the Family Medical Leave Act, I think is what it is. So I submitted it and I got denied. So I remember my office at the time, they knew what was going on and they were not being very flexible with me. And when I remember it got denied, I was like, I got to get out of here. Like this place, the season that I was in, the people that I was working for, there were some that were very supportive and there were some that almost like, I don't know. It was just, it's really sad looking back that I would hope that something like this would never happen to one of them because how they handled it with me was not ideal. And um, I just had no flexibility. I had to like toughen up. I had to get through it. I had to whatever. And that's when I started being like, okay, this place, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I think this place is contributing to it. You start paying attention to what makes you anxious and who makes you anxious. And at some period of times, there's no way to track it. And then others, you're like, every time I'm around you, I'm anxious. Every time I'm doing this, I'm anxious. And so I started interviewing for other places. And I remember the place that I ended up ultimately leaving the company I was at and going to. I had an anxiety attack. I had a panic attack literally during my interview. And my interview was about an hour long, and I had a panic attack for probably 75% of it. And I remember I got so good, which is so sad to think about now. I got so good at hiding it. My heart is beating. I couldn't even imagine 100 and some odd beats a second. I would be dead. But my heart was beating so fast and I just was having these thoughts, and my ability to sit across from someone and them have no idea and me be able to answer interview questions is scary. But so I was going through all these interviews and, I remember, getting the job, and I remember telling them later that I actually had an anxiety attack during the interview, and they were like, we had no idea, which is scary. Thinking of all that's going on in your brain and that someone outwardly can't see it, it's kind of good, that makes you feel good, but then it also is like, that's really scary that all can be happening inside my brain and inside my body, and nobody can really know that it's going on. And so I ended up leaving that job and, starting this new one. And I remember them denying me help really motivated me to help myself. Like, I love in Mel Robbins's, I think it's in her book, but she always is like, no one's coming to save you and no one's coming to do this for you. And no one's coming to hold your hand and no one's coming to do that. And I think that was kind of the wake up call for me, which was a total blessing in disguise. I don't even know that it was in disguise at the time, but I just remember being a total blessing that it's like, okay, they aren't helping me. So now it's my turn to help myself. And so I was very disappointed and I was hurt and I was angry. And that's unfortunately a really good motivator for me. So I remember in a 2-week period, I remember breaking up with the guy that I was dating. It was a very unhealthy relationship that absolutely was contributing to my mental health and my anxiety and everything that I had going on. I remember leaving my job. And then another thing that I did was I just refreshed my space. Right? Like when you're living with anxiety, like you're not taking good care of, like your space looks like what's going on inside your head. My space was not good. It was not clean. It was not in order. And my mom, came up to help me, and we took 3 to 4 truckloads of stuff to donate or to sell or whatever. And we just got it out in preparation for this, next season of my life. And, yeah, so that was me deciding and choosing for myself that I wasn't going to live like this anymore. I was going to do something about it. I was going to start getting healing. And that's when, I don't remember exactly when I started therapy. I think it probably was around this time, but I got very, very serious about therapy. I got very serious about, who I'm spending my time with and how I'm spending my time. And I can tell you that getting out of that job, getting away from that guy that I was dating, probably eliminated 30%, if not more, of the anxiety. And something that you learn about your body in general, guys, is just because you eliminate, if there's a something that is unhealthy to you and has been around you for a significant period of time, it's them going away for a day or a week your nervous system and your body is not going to just like bounce back that quick, right? It takes a lot of very intentional effort to heal yourself. So, and truthfully, if anybody's listening to this, my voice sounds a little different. I was sick all last week. I'm truthfully a little short on breath just because of how I felt then. So if I'm a little extra raspy, that's why. But kind of going back to what I was saying before is that I went through all of these changes. I decided for myself I was going to help myself. I started getting in more to counseling and therapy. And I was really being very selective of who I was spending my time with and how I was spending my time. And I started putting all my energy back into myself instead of other people. I didn't have a lot of extra energy. And anybody who's had mental health of anything, any type of mental health, anything, you know that you just don't have a lot of energy. And I find that sometimes we get ourselves into these circumstances is that we burn ourselves out. And then we don't have a lot of extra energy to put towards ourselves and to put towards eating healthy food and working out and whatever. We just like getting out of bed is a win, you know? So I remember feeling probably, I would say 30% better. And then I started a new job and I started getting better and better and better. But mind you, it still wasn't completely gone, right? It wasn't completely gone. This maybe turned into, instead of every day, it was a couple a week, and then it became one a week. And then it was like every other week. And it was the first, like, that's how I lived my life, was just like, okay, I need to try to get as much done that I can. It's that before an anxiety attack, right? Or before a panic attack. And so I would have that anticipatory anxiety, which then enabled more anxiety. And it sounds crazy, I'm sure, but anybody who's lived it is probably listening to this going, wow, she gets it. And I do. So then I had started new jobs and I started seeking healing because I knew in this next job that I needed something that was in a good season for where I was with my mental health and where I needed to be financially and what I needed to do. And so other things that I did for healing, because that's really, really important, is I started telling people what was happening and how I felt. I remember started telling my friends because I felt embarrassed. I remember feeling really, really embarrassed that I had all these like horrible thoughts in my head and I couldn't, telling people that you like struggle to literally get through the day as an adult is hard to do. And so I started telling people like, I'm feeling anxious right now. And I remember seeing, I don't know if it was my therapist that advised me to get this book or not, but I'm going to tag a book in my Amazon storefront. It's called The Panic Trick. And I don't remember if I saw it on social media or if I saw it. I don't remember how I initially or Googled it. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal book. If you are dealing with severe anxiety, I don't know if depression, I never really struggled with depression per se, but I imagine it probably would be helpful, but panic attacks and panic disorder. It's a phenomenal book called The Panic Trick. It's a workbook, and it really helped to bring logic into what was going on with your body. And I remember going through this whole workbook and writing down all my thoughts and my feelings and why I felt a certain way and why I was doing what I was doing. And it ended up just really helping me. Like, I remember one thing that I said was that, like, I am fearful, like the thoughts that I'm having is I'm scared of this happening. And then you'd run through what the actual case, like how statistically possible that was, that could actually happen. And you're doing this book when you're not obviously in an anxiety attack or in a panic attack, because that's when your logic can kick in a little bit more. Or I remember it had examples in the book about how like the shortness of breath will lead to you feeling this way. Or he talked about like, you almost ultimately can't pass out when you're having an anxiety attack because of how much your heart is going. And you're like, your body's like, we need to run, right? Your body, when your body thinks it needs to run, it's not going to pass out. And I also remember too, reading this book, and it just like really brought great perspective into what anxiety was and how our mind works and how it's actually trying to help us and why our bodies are doing these things to make you realize certain things that you're going through. So overall, 10 out of 10. I recommend that book. If you feel like you've tried everything or you haven't, or you're just new on your journey, I recommend purchasing that book. It's very reasonable. If there's somebody that for some reason can't afford it, but they want it, please message me. I will buy it for you. It is just an absolutely incredible book. Other things that I started doing was I looked into more of my health. I started looking more into my gut health and my brain and my body and nutrients and working out and supplementation. I started getting more curious about these things and researching them to figure out what I was doing. And I was definitely self-diagnosing. I absolutely would not recommend this because even though something's natural, you can definitely overdo it. For example, I was just talking about this today with my doctor. I self-medicated in a sense of like using supplements. I don't take any actual medications. But I was taking way too much ashwagandha. That is like the supplement and herb and a lot of the natural things that are out there right on the market is that you see like Tulsi, GABA, L-theanine, ashwagandha, lemon balm. This is how much anxiety I've had, guys, that I can literally list these off the top of my head. But ashwagandha is one of those that it's literally called the Indian ginseng, right? So ginseng is what is in things to like give you energy. And so I was like popping. I remember they were the those gummies. They were purple. What is that container? It's like is it Ollie? I think so. They have like a calm gummy, Ollie. And I remember I took them all the time. And they were like, just take them when you're feeling anxious. Please do not just take them when you're feeling anxious. I took so many of those stupid things. I would either one, be so backed up from the fact that it was like a gummy. And then the other part, you are overtake. Just because it is natural does not mean that it's helping you. So I was overdoing it on ashwagandha and I was like jazzed up. Okay. It gave me more anxiety because of what I was doing. So definitely make sure you're going to do your research. I totally support, trying to self-heal and whatever, but it wasn't until I actually got hooked up with, I had seen one time on an influencer's page that I knew, she tagged this doctor that was helping her through her hormonal journey. And I remember her specific ailment and issue that she was dealing with was her hair was falling out. And I didn't have that issue, but I was very sick. And I was very skinny. I had issues going on with like food allergies and different things at the time. I had a lot of stuff that was happening around the same period. And I remember, I don't know exactly what did it and why I reached out to her, but I think it might have had to do something with anxiety. I believe this influencer maybe mentioned something. And so I reached out to this doctor, Dr. Elena Zinkoff. She's amazing. I still go to her now. She's based out of Texas. She's absolutely incredible. Hopefully we tag her in some of this stuff, but she absolutely saved my life. And I know she knows it because I tell her, but we did all these blood panels. I told her all of these situations that was happening to me. And I definitely recognize that to get good medical care, especially in the United States, it does require having to spend some money, especially for naturopathic. And I know that makes me really frustrated. I could go down a whole soapbox for it, but Dr. Elena Zinkoff literally absolutely changed my life. She did all of these blood panels. We ran through all of this supplementation. I told her what I was doing. I told her what I was not. And guys, when I tell you, I felt like the best version of myself, not the old version of myself, because I was even better. I felt cooler, calmer, more collected. Literally about 2 months after I started working with her, it changed my life. Just learning about hormones and how cortisol, right? Everybody's always hearing about cortisol, and that cortisol, is just part of it, right? You have all of these other hormones in your body. And when something is, not where it should be, or something else is too much or not enough, whatever, it just, things are not good. When you're not balanced, it's not good. And so you're not eating the right way. You're not sleeping the right way. You're not, doing these things. And she just helped realign everything for me. And so we talked about a lot of different supplements. There's a lot of really great natural herbs and remedies and supplements that you can be taking. Some you're supposed to be taking in the morning, some you're supposed to be taking at night. But just one thing, for example, is magnesium. So what we're going to do, I just talked to Carolyn. What we're going to do, I'm going to get with Carolyn and Jean. I'm going to get with my team, and we're going to put together I believe I already have a lot of these supplements in my Amazon storefront, but I'm actually going to put them in a specific like stress, anxiety, whatever situation. I'm going to put that in my Amazon storefront, but magnesium is a huge one. I take magnesium, I take GABA, I take L-theanine, 5-HTP, and a bunch of other things as well. Those things are very much so to support my brain, support my sleep. But mind you, there's other things like vitamin D that helps, different things with hormones. So you just have to be very, very mindful of that. And she just really helped to figure that out from my supplementation and my routine. Another was my gut health. My gut health actually was very, very good. I had had food allergies for years prior, so I was eating really well. My gut health was very happy. She was very happy with all of that. So that wasn't a major issue with me, but it is with many people that the foods that you're eating, guys, like your entire body is made up of. It's not like we're one of those dolls. And if anybody had those dolls when you were younger that you like put the food in and then the food just comes out, like our body is literally made up of what we put into it. Our nutrients, our food, our drink, like that is what we are made of. We're not just like this outer being and then it only touches our digestive system and it goes in and it goes out. It is our entire body. So if you are feeding yourself processed foods, soda, not drinking enough water, you are not eating fruits and vegetables, you're not sleeping enough, that is your being. That is your whole being. And that's really where I think a lot of people need to be starting with this is, how am I sleeping? What's my eating like? Am I hydrated? Am I moving my body? Who am I spending my time around? What am I spending my time doing? Those are the things, if you're struggling with anxiety or anything with your mental health, I just want you to start with those things. And I'm not trying to minimize what you're going through. I've been through it. I get it. But I really just want you to start there. If you're only sleeping 4 hours a night, you're staying up till 1 a.m. and then you got to get to work at 6 a.m., not going to set you up for success. If you're not eating anything and only drinking coffee until 2 p.m., you're going to have some mental health issues. Your body needs food. A major drastic change, huge tip that I would give that Dr. Elena gave to me was eating 30 grams of protein at breakfast. Do not drink coffee on an empty stomach and make sure you're eating a substantial breakfast. Sometimes I would miss breakfast. I would just do a bar. My blood sugar and my anxiety crossed every single morning. I had like a mid-morning panic attack every single morning. My blood sugar would drop, my anxiety would rise, and you could see how this would go on then for the rest of the day. So definitely take a look at all of those things. Another thing that we looked into, and again, you're going to need to go to a doctor to discuss this, but we started looking into bioidentical hormones. So versus synthetic hormones, there's bioidentical, and that's made by things that your body naturally recognizes. Synthetic is going to be more of like the hormonal birth control, progestin type things. And so something that you guys need to be very aware of, if there are, I imagine, women listening to this podcast, is that birth control is absolutely affecting your mental health. And that was something else that I was on when this first started happening to me, is I was on birth control, and I'd been on birth control for about 7 years. There's a reason why that packet and that booklet is 15 million pages long. If you are struggling with mental health, again, I am not a doctor, but I would guarantee, and your doctor's probably not going to tell you that it is because they're a doctor, but again, we could go down that rabbit hole. If you are on birth control, it absolutely is affecting your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. It is affecting everything about you. Our hormones lead everything in our entire body. And when your hormones are out of whack, your entire body is out of whack. And I understand that everyone is on it and everyone is taking it. And we think that it's only, helping us this with preventing pregnancy or my irregular periods and this, that, and whatever. It is doing a lot more than that. And I would recommend looking into going off of it. There are many other options to you out there to be safe and healthy. And that's something that I chose for myself, was to go off of birth control. And I have never gone back on it. I will never go back on it. And that's like a whole other podcast we could do just about women's bodies in general and natural things. But those were major things that I did for myself. And I changed jobs, and I really reflected on myself, and I started going through healing, and I really started challenging myself. I ended up starting, my own business after that, and my anxiety was not gone. And there's time, guys, I'll be honest, that I still struggle with anxiety. I still struggle with things like that, and they're very, very challenging. But um, it was a long journey, and it was a long battle, I would say. But I'm not cured. I'm just different. I'm not cured. I don't think I'll ever be cured per se, but I am just better suited and better well prepared for my life and for the way that I navigated my experience with anxiety. So that is a very expedited version of years and years of navigating my own experience. But I do want to just say that if you're someone who is dealing with anxiety right now, I want you to know that you are not anxious. You feel anxious. And I want you to also know that your body is not failing you. Your brain is not failing you. It is just your internal alarm system that's going off. That's all that the anxiety is it your alarm system is going off. Something is wrong. Your body is uncomfortable. It is not happy. There is something that is bothering you, and your body is trying to give you a severe enough reaction to recognize that something's wrong, and it just wants you to get uncomfortable enough so that you create change. Pay attention to it. You are not meant to live with anxiety. You're not meant to live with depression. You're not meant to live and having panic attacks. Something is wrong. Pay attention to your body. Lean into it. Get curious. You're going to have to put some work in. And I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to make some changes about your life. How we talked about the eating, sleeping, drinking. How much alcohol are you drinking, right? Like, those are things I want you to be thinking about. And I really want you to audit your life and pay attention to, have a little booklet even of writing down, when am I feeling anxious? I went out to lunch with Susie, and I felt incredibly anxious when I was out to lunch with Susie. I'm not saying you need to cut Susie from your life, but I'm saying you need to make a note of it. That's it. And I noticed that when I don't, keep a food journal, when I eat this, I feel good. When I don't eat this, I don't feel good, right? I'm drinking. This is how much I'm drinking. This is what I'm drinking. I feel really anxious the next day after I drink. Maybe something to pay attention to. Wait, when I have a really good night's sleep, what did I do before I went to sleep? So really just start paying attention to how you're living and how you're existing, and how you're taking care of your body, because your body is the most important thing to you, and it should be. And you want to make sure that it's happy and it's healthy and it's being well taken care of. Because now, being on the other side of this, guys, I am in a crazy way thankful that I went through that experience, because I'm now able to kind of coach and help people through it. But I also, it really forced me to think about what's truly important. It takes quite a bit for me to get worked up about stuff now. And I would say a majority of that is because I feel like I've experienced, I don't want to say that I've experienced the worst, but you know what I mean. When you've experienced something so traumatic, it's really hard to allow yourself to get that anxious or that nervous about something when it's just not really worth it. So I'm very thankful now, and I have a lot of gratitude towards those years of my life that I experienced that the way that I did, to be able to see what's truly, truly important. And I know that the way I was living was not healthy, and I had to make changes for myself. So I'm really, really thankful and appreciative of that now. Are there times that I do get upset and frustrated with the fact that I feel like it requires so much for me to maintain equilibrium? Yes. Homeostasis, total pain in the butt. I have a big supplement container. I have to eat a certain way. I have to sleep a certain way. I had to cut a lot of people out. I had to cut a lot of my own behaviors out. I have see all different types of therapists and life coaches and whatever, but I just, through going through that experience, it really made me realize just how important I am and how important I want to be to myself as well. And that I'm thankful. I'm very, very thankful that I went through it. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. I would not wish it on anyone. But now I feel like I'm in a much better place and suited to be able to talk about it with other people. So if you are someone who is struggling with anxiety right now, please just Know that this isn't it. This isn't your life forever. Get curious about your body. Get curious about what's going on. Pay attention to yourself. And just know that this doesn't have to be it. And getting help for yourself is one of the most important things that you can do, because life is meant to be lived. It's not just to exist. And when you are dealing with mental health, sometimes it feels like you are just existing, and that is not the life that you're meant to live. So feel free to reach out to me if any of this if you've connected with any of this. Um, I will probably try to talk to Dr. Lena and tag her through some of these things. I'm not sure if she's taking on new patients. I didn't even ask her. I don't even know that she knows that I'm making this podcast. But I just do want to say a special thank you to her, because she really helped me in many ways that I felt like nobody else was going to. And she just had so many answers for me. When I just felt like I could not find any answers. So very appreciative therapists, my friends, my family during that entire period, my business, my clients that did or did not know that this was going on. That's crazy, right? To start a business during this time when you're having this like incredible mental health time that you're struggling. I started a business because that's of course like the first thing that you should do. But looking back, yeah, if anybody had any experiences with me and they're like, why'd she act so weird? Or why she act? I was hanging on by a thread. But I'm in a much, much better place now. I'm very appreciative of it. And, I hope that you too will see the other side of it. So, like I said, we're going to leave some tips. I'm going to put some stuff in my Amazon storefront. And, I hope that listening to this podcast, you feel understood. You feel maybe a little bit better about, I'm someone who's very much so on the internet and in the public eye. And I too struggle with things deep inside, and in, my home and in my own secret place and in my vulnerability of me being a real person. I struggle with things as well. So I hope that it gave you some motivation to maybe change some of your own situations, maybe give you some answers. And if not, maybe you just know that somebody else out there has felt similar things to you have. So thank you so much for listening to the pod today. If anybody has any questions about this journey or wants me to do a part 2 about answering questions about anxiety, I'm more than happy to help out. And I just appreciate you guys listening, and I look forward to the next episode.